All right, today we're going to dive into Immutable X. A lot of people have been asking about this token, what it means, and whether or not you should actually get into the project or maybe start learning a little bit more about it. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. Today we'll dive in a little bit deeper on where Immutable X is going, kind of the overall, I think, position of what IMX, the token, but also Immutable X, the platform, means to crypto and what this means, I think, especially to the NFT space. And we'll get into that, of course, in depth today. And also at the end of the video, I'll show you a chart on our own index that we score a lot of these new tokens like this. And the only variance is this one's a very early token, so it is one that we've been able to grab at least a certain amount of data. You want to stay tuned for that. Before we get started, today's partner for this episode is iTrust Capital, and of course, we love them. The cool thing about iTrust, I used iTrust, and it is one of those products that I think any crypto investor should have in their portfolio, and that is a crypto IRA. And especially as you get down toward tax season and at the end of the year, the likelihood is you're going to be able to move money in. Maybe you haven't taken an IRA out. This is a great time. The last quarter of the year is when we see a lot of activity, because people are trying to reduce their tax burden, and this is a good spot in which you can do it. Works much like another or any other IRA. Of course, you have to go fiat in, or you can do some transfers into that as well. But the cool thing it is a self-directed IRA in terms of managing your crypto assets once you get in there. Pretty easy to get in and participate. And the cool thing that I like about it is the fact that with iTrust, you've got a lot of different benefits, not only from the simple setup, but you've got, of course, tremendous security. Of course, they've done a deal with Coinbase in terms of their security and in general, kind of the productivity of where iTrust is going. 24/7 trading. You've got secured storage on that side, like I was mentioning. And the other thing that is kind of cool about this is if you sign up right now, you're going to get like $100 in Bitcoin. And this is like no strings attached. You sign up, you're going to get $100 in Bitcoin. That is you're going to be able to pay for your monthly fees easily with your $100 in Bitcoin. So right now there is a monthly fee for the platform, but it is a low fee. And I think it's one that is worth it, especially if you are starting to look at crypto trading, especially on the side of crypto IRAs. Anyway, so we're going to get into a little bit about where, and I think a lot of this applies to, back to the IRA for a second, a lot of this applies to what your current portfolio is. If you're heavy on Bitcoin or you're heavy on Ethereum, or you have to have those big big altcoins that may fall into something like iTrust, things like you might want to hold a lot longer. So there's a lot of options to go with over there. So anyway, let's get into Immutable X today, and that, of course, is going to be really kind of diving into what Immutable X is. I want to get over to a couple of news stories. Immutable X aims to make NFTs scalable, cheaper on Ethereum, and that's really kind of the angle around what Immutable is. Soaring popularity among DeFi and NFT apps, of course, led to several problems on the network. You guys, of course, are probably dealing with that right now, especially related to the network congestion and this whole issue around high gas fees. But Immutable X is one of the projects that's working toward essentially kind of addressing this. Now, the question I have is whether or not we're going to see Immutable continue its growth as we start to see ETH 2.0 reduce gas fees over, say, the next 6 to 9 months. But in the meantime, Immutable, I think, is going to be, one, very tied to a very cool ecosystem within the NFT side of things. And two, I think the user application and some of the partnership deals that they're making are very important right now in terms of growing this project. So, and I'll talk about a little bit of those in terms of that. But things have been busy over at the Immutable X ecosystem over the past few weeks. This is kind of going into the partners. Biggest names collaborating with platform, you look at TikTok, Vivi, Disney, Marvel, and now most recently esports giant ESL Gaming, which is a big one. The partnership with ESL Gaming, though, is going to allow the company to offer NFT minting, trading on its platform, as well as scheduled to launch along with the ESL Pro Tour, which gets into kind of this whole aspect of really moving it into NFT gaming. And I think that's going to be the key play for Immutable X. Now, the token IMX just listed on a few exchanges, and here in the US, it's very difficult to get to. So I'm not going to tell you to go out there and do anything crazy to try to get to this, but there are some aspects and ways that you can get to it. So if you're creative and you do your research, you're going to be able to jump into that. Before we get further into this, I want to talk about market movers and how we do these. The way we do these is we'll compile stories, get some research behind the scenes, and then pull up data that we pull from our own crypto index that gives us sentiment amplification, helps us understand how we go about things. Not investment advice to you, but hopefully this gets you moving in the right direction in terms of your, kind of the things you're getting into. And if you love a project, I think that's the number one thing that helps any investor is you really fall into kind of the rabbit hole of understanding what that project means. Is it interesting to you? Maybe you're into gaming, maybe you're into NFTs, then Immutable X is the kind of project you want to be around. Its success, it's also potentially pulling projects off to other ecosystems. This is another thing that I think shows the strength of a project. And when you start seeing projects move, it's kind of like this, man. You have a cell phone. It's very hard for you to move from Verizon to AT&T or AT&T to Verizon. In most cases, it's terrible. Think about this: your iPhone Samsung or your iPhone Android. That in itself is a massive shift. So for projects to take and move off of what are very good project platforms onto Immutable X, that says something big. And let me explain what this means. Ember Sword partners now with Immutable X and migrates from Polygon. So that is a huge move in the gaming sector when you see. Now, what does that tell you? The likelihood, even though we just had the Polygon NFT lead on here recently, check out that video. I think you're gonna like it because it really talks about Polygon's infrastructure. But when you look at gaming and really kind of what Immutable X is trying to do, they are really all in on that aspect, and they are essentially going to become the platform for NFT and NFT gaming, I think, in the future, or one of the key platforms, I think, that will be the big players in the future. But Brightstar Studios project, Ember Sword, originally built on Polygon, is now shifting over to Immutable X. And this is, obviously, you guys know this is a layer 2 for NFTs. By the end of this year, they're going to do this. So that, to me, is a big move. They are going to be, of course, Ember Sword is a multiplayer, free-to-play game that is basically set in Control Fantasy Universe or Metaverse, another big move into where that's going. And I think this is going to be just one of many that start to move in this direction. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to see a lot of migration, but I think we might see some key migrations from other platforms and other ecosystems moving to Immutable X. The challenge, I think, with Immutable X right now is this. One, you can use it as a utility token right now today on the marketplace. You can go in and do that. Obviously, you need to be able to get into the token, but there are some options and ways that you can do that. And eventually we'll make a video on how you can start to do those things without, getting into crazy law breaking in terms of how you're going to be able to access some of these projects. But it is a first layer 2 for NFTs on Ethereum. You can kind of go in, and this is kind of where I think their benefit is they've got their whole building aspect for project leads and developers jumping into this. And I think this is going to be a big opportunity for really an explosion around the ecosystem of Immutable X. And then, of course, you can jump into the marketplace, which, of course, right here, you've got TikTok Moments, Gods Unchanged, which is really kind of the backside of Immutable X. Lots of connectivity over to Gods Unchained. And then you can kind of see just kind of the list of different projects that are currently on there. Guild of Guardians Heroes. And you can kind of just move in and out of these. And I like the fact that, man, Gods Unchained looks so good there. But I like the fact that this is one of those early stage projects that are just now getting rolling, and that a lot of times is that's half the challenge of you if you're going into some of these degen projects like IMX, is that you've got you've heard about it, sure, now you got to figure out a way to get to it. Then you've got to look at potentials of what that growth is going to look like over time, who are the partnerships, what research, and then who are the dev teams behind where this project is going. And I think that is going to be a key thing. The other thing is watch the influencers. You got Gary Vee over here even talking about Immutable X. He's a big NFT guy. And if you haven't checked out what Gary Vee is doing in the NFT space, you probably should start following him on Twitter, because he is dropping a lot of very interesting gems around the projects he's interested in. But more importantly, I think as his strategy starts to build in the NFT space, which I think is going to be his whole new era of, I don't think he's going to be known for social media. I think he's going to be known for blockchain, NFTs, and gaming when his legacy is there. I think this is the guy, or one of the guys, that's really going to be way out ahead of it. Let's get into the kind of the breakdown of what Immutable X is, kind of just where it flows into it, how you guys can move in and out of it, etc. But it's basically, it's a layer 2 scaling solution. You're going to leverage the power of security on the Ethereum blockchain rather than compete against it. And then you take a look at kind of the aspect behind this. This is the big killer idea, is they're doing this without the gas fees. And that is, I think, the biggest advantage. Well, obviously it's the biggest advantage right now, but down the road, this will become an advantage based not only on the transaction side, but on the ecosystem strength. And as they start to really build into NFT and gaming. Liquidity, blockchain actually means you can always buy and sell on the asset. This is exactly what Immutable X allows you to do. Even more so, it's maximize liquidity by allowing creation of virtual fungible tokens or markets based on any subset of token characteristics. For example, if you have a rare Crick Quail VFriends, that's Gary Vee's thing, NFT, then you can search for that asset using a single terms. This is going to give you kind of the benefits of what Immutable X is. Almost think of it kind of like the Google of what NFTs are going to be at some point. There are going to be many platforms, I feel like, that will move in this direction, but this is one of the first movers in terms of success and kind of where it's going to go. So this is another thing a lot of people ask, is why not go the sidechain route? The problem with sidechains is they're not decentralized. Many of them have as few as 5 central operators, so their own consensus algorithms. They typically are kind of achieving throughput by loosening the decentralization of security products. What does this mean? Sidechain simply means it's another way to kind of solve the problem that exists out there in these transaction and congestion issues that you deal with ETH in general. And what Immutable X has done is they've solved this on a completely new approach. And I think that's kind of the benefit that they bring to the game in terms of why they're early, and also why I think a lot of people are migrating to them, because you've got the benefits of people jumping over from Polygon chain, which really surprised me. But I think we'll see more of that kind of going in this direction. And last thing is, that's why Immutable X is a layer on top of the Ethereum main chain. It's much more secure, which eliminates the kind of the risk in the scenarios that you see behind that. Why use it? And this is kind of the other factor that you want to look at. And this is a good, just a quick rundown of things. 0 gas fees from peer-to-peer trading. You can set your own trading fees. Users keep their private keys, which I think is still a big factor. Huge scalability on their transactions, on their TPS. Decentralized layer 2, obviously we know that. And then secured by Ethereum. I think that's the other big advantage. And obviously you get the, kind of the ESG scenario there with 100% carbon neutrality there. So it's hitting on all the right numbers, and definitely checking all the boxes of what you look at in some of these projects. It's a very early project, even though we saw a big pump at the beginning, and you'll see this in the charts, but it is also a big opportunity for long-term growth. I am invested, but when you go into going this direction, this is one of those you might want to hold for a while, and or look for the potential for some big gains during the altcoin season, and especially during kind of some of the activity once we see some capital loosen up after these bull runs. I think this is one of those projects that's going to end up being a very valuable project to have in your portfolio. Other aspects of this, I wanted to show you guys another site. This is called Tokentrove, which one of our guys researched this out. He's big into NFTs and really following the gaming space heavy for us, one of our best researchers. And this is good because I feel like this starts to really isolate just how powerful Immutable X can be, especially if we get into these alternative marketplaces where we see more and more connectivity going into this direction. I think that's a very cool thing. So if you look at Gods Unchained, there's the cards there. You can obviously see what's happening there. This is just a great little site, but you should check it out, Tokentrove. If you're into NFTs, NFT gaming, these are the kind of tool sets that you're going to want to be looking at and using to understand where the market's moving, because obviously the tokens behind all this are probably what you're interested in, but the infrastructures themselves have to be solid. And when you have these kind of partnerships that are starting to form, you start to see the painting is coming to life. And that's the thing to watch out for. So cool stuff. And the other thing here, I wanted to kind of jump on this last story here. They break a record with over 720,000 registrations for the 12.5 million IMX sale on CoinList. Man, I'm telling you, the Europeans and some of the Asians, they get to have all the fun on this stuff because they're getting early access to these, especially as they hit certain aspects. And then you've got this, of course, jumping. But they sold out the CoinList sale, 12.5 million IMX tokens, less than an hour. And then you can kind of look here. It's a native, obviously, it's a native token for Immutable X. On its, but it's got a ZK rollup on this, which I think is kind of cool. Scaling protocol for gas-free minting and trading. That's some of the things at which they're using. It has announced integrations in marketplaces such as OpenSea, Mintable, Tokentrove, which we just showed you, and also is powering some of the largest NFT plays across DeFi. Guess who's there? Superfarm. We talked about them the other day in our project list that we did on the metaverse. And of course, you've got collectibles like Epic's GG, and of course, Green Park Sports, Illuvium, another big player, and then My Crypto Heroes. That's the kind of thing that you've got to look for in these projects, because those kind of connections, connecting the dots, remember I talk about this all the time in following this space, and it's much like what it was like in the early internet era, is if you followed the dots of all the developers and all of the tech that was underlying, you were figuring out where the plays were coming together in Silicon Valley. That's happening, of course, on the blockchain, but obviously it's not centered around Silicon Valley. This is centered around a global expansion of development that's happening in the blockchain. And that's the beauty about projects like Immutable X, is it creates kind of such a huge global ecosystem. The opportunities and ideas are coming from so many different places. I think this is just the beginning of where this is going to be going very, very soon. Let's jump to CoinMarketCap just to give you guys a quick rundown. 384 currently trading. And you can kind of see the, let's go to the, well, there's not much there because it's all solved since the listing, which was just right back here on the 5th. But you can kind of see that little bit of spike, a little bit of movement down here. You do have a little bit of volume starting to generate here on this end right here. And of course, that's right here on 11.8, where the trading is at $4.01. So a little bit up from there, and it dipped a little. This is the kind of activity that I start to look for in projects after the initial pump. And then I look for opportunities to be able to go in and get something, and before it starts to hit on the major listing exchanges. Because once this gets available in wide circulation, this is one of those I think we'll see an immediate pump. The other aspect is, I think, as we see more and more gaming companies starting to truly develop on platforms, I think this is going to be one of the big key partners that's going to help that move. Then you have the NFT space and what's going to happen there in the whole brand ecosystem. Who knows the kind of deals that they're going to be making there when you think about VV and all those connections. Lots happening here in the space with Immutable X. All right, so here on CoinMarketCap, you'll get a list quickly of where you could go get to this. Obviously, you could go into Sushi or Uniswap. You are going to be exposed to the fees, so just be aware of that in that kind of scenario. There are some other exchanges out there, and I'd love to get your, because our show gets to a lot of international audience. I'm interested in some of these exchanges like FTX and Huobi that, one, how's your experience? How have you been able to navigate it? Do you guys use full KYC? Do you exchange? How do you move projects out of there when you want to move tokens? Things of that nature. I'm kind of curious on just some of those international project platforms that are out there. And we have a lot of people that reach to us that we should cover. And I'd kind of get, I use you guys as a great bellwether of understanding real use case scenarios on some of these exchanges. Give me your rating, because I use Pinex a lot for things like this. Pinex I like, but what are some of the ones that you guys are using that you would try to go this route for IMX if you're an international viewer? Love to hear your input there. All right, so let's move over to TradingView and take a quick look at just kind of the sentiment layer. Very short, you have to understand this is still very, very early on this project. Lots of volume right here you saw on November 9th, trading right here in the beginning, and we saw that little spike to around 412. Of course, it's adjusted. We got another sentiment run right here, but you can kind of see the move coming on the sweep up here. This was pulled on November 8th, just the other day. 68.92, AMP holding at 65.17. These are decent numbers for an early token like this to already see the 60s in terms of sentiment, and especially because of the fact that this is still not widely known about. So that in itself is pretty impressive. And then right here, you've got a sentiment we pulled on the next day, the 9th. This is holding at 71.49. So quickly moving up the charts in terms of sentiment, and amplification also moved up, but even more so to 70.34. So these kinds of indicators usually start to point to good activity for a token. Now, is this one of those that I would say we could see parabolic growth on? Maybe not in the near term, but I feel like this is going to be one of the projects that definitely is going to be hitting in this bull run, and we could see these multi-X gains really start to explode as we start to see kind of that altcoin season wrap around what's going to happen, what will be happening in NFT and gaming. Because remember, you're going to have a lot of liquidity in the space moving into new projects. This is going to be one of those projects I feel like is the play. This is very early on, so we'll probably look back on this in 90 days or 120 days and really look at where you could have invested. Immutable X could be a ridiculous X number in terms of growth. So just keep it on your watch list if you're not into degens and you're waiting for it to become more mainstream. Hey, everybody bought Solana that way. So you could look at those kind of projects where you're probably buying Solana over $100. That's not a bad thing. Solana's trading around $250 now, so you did just fine. But these are the kind of things, if you had been looking at Solana back when it was under $10 or even under $5, and that's not that long ago, and that's the kind of growth capacity that many of these NFT and gaming potential ecosystems have, especially as you watch into these. Another one is, of course, Metaverse, and we've talked about these guys before, and Sand is one that is a good comparison. Another big project that has the potential to really take off and run. All right, so that's going to wrap it for today. One thing to remember, if you guys have not done this, is get into our Diamond Circle. The Diamond Circle is a very, very good program for you. The things that we're starting to do with it, obviously we're giving away, NFTs. We're trying to give, here's a good idea. Hit the comments below and let me know what NFTs you'd be interested in getting access to if we were giving away some NFTs. We're getting ready to drop some. So we do these in the live streams. It's easy to join. Just go over to paulbaronnetwork.com/Diamond Circle, and you'll be able to get to it and just register just so we know who you are and how it works. Remember, once you've won, give us a few days. Sometimes it takes about a week to get that into the system because we have to track it from an accounting side when we're giving these rewards away. And then we have to trace down your wallets. Our producers will send out the note to you that says, hey, you've won, give me your wallet, and we'll send some stuff over to you. So just give us a little time there. And not a big deal, but just on housekeeping, make sure it's the right wallet, because sometimes you'll send us we get the wrong wallet, or we get an inaccurate match on the token or the project we're giving away. And then we have to chase you down again. It's hard on the producers because I didn't want to complain, but you get the point. Is we're trying to make it easy and simple for everybody as best we can. But it's easy to join. Jump in there. We are going to start dropping some emails to you that will release new content, also some new reports that we're working on with our research teams. That's going to be coming as well. We've got a couple of new big reports coming out in the next few weeks, so you want to be on the circle for that. And otherwise, hit me up on Twitter, @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.